Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture, the show where we discuss science, technology and culture in its myriad of forms. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. At least where I am now, I think spring has sprung.
Yes, sun and warmth. It's something we wanted earlier than late November, I think. But what are you going to do? I thought, following on after last week's episode, that might be good to go into virtual reality. If you haven't checked out our last week's episode, we covered the election, which I assume you know why we're laughing about that. But just wanted to start with the Samsung Gear VR, and this week I was talking to someone who was explaining to me his experience using this thing, and this is like the everyday person experience. So you hear enough around of the Samsung itself promoting it, or the tech heads and the tech nerds describing it, but you don't really, like, I never really. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's a generational thing. I never really paid much attention to it. I couldn't see what the attraction was. It was when someone like him explained it to me, because he described a couple of scenarios that are programmed into the app. One was a horror theme, going into a haunted house with a wacky, horrific doll chasing him around, and another one was being on top of the Empire State Building in New York or something, and walking across a gantry, so you have that sort of vertigo effect. And he sort of enjoyed, the experience of it. He did say to me he wasn't sure, if he'd be doing it all the time, because it seemed more like a gimmick for 5 minutes and then maybe you might get bored with it. But you can imagine that the applications for this sort of thing could become very useful. And something we were saying before we got on, there's an entertainment aspect to it, obviously gaming and whatever. I could I could imagine like the first steps of the Star Trek holodeck emerging from this, where you could have a 3D interactive choose your own adventure type film experience and be immersed in it as well. Then you got like productivity type applications that you can do with this too. So I think it's for the first time I'm starting to see where this could work and be interesting. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm probably a little bit surprised that it's taken so long. I mean, Oculus has been with us now for 18 months.
Yeah.
So these products have been around. I mean, VR has been around for a long time, mainly in simulation, sort of high end, probably for the last 10 years. But now it's starting to come through, and consumers can go out and purchase the kits. But I know they're expensive, but I haven't seen a lot of them. But it's always interesting when you start to meet people you work with or know, and they're using these products. It means there's suddenly I guess a level of traction. I guess the question is now is how quickly will that happen? I think if we look back to video games, it'll be a similar scenario where over time, as the products get better and better, then obviously the applications improve, the experience improves, the price comes down, and before you know it, they just become an ordinary part of your entertainment or training or simulation sort of scenario. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's this idea that, if you look at the iPhone's trajectory, for example, it wasn't really good until the iPhone 4, and it didn't become great until the 5. So that's 4 or 5 generations in, and we're not quite there yet with the current set of products with VR. The Samsung Gear VR, the Google Cardboard, is making it more accessible. So it's putting it more into the hands of people to make it more affordable, which is, I think, one crucial step in this process, and also making it an add-on for your smartphone, which you're more than likely to have as well. And that's where I think that type of thing does gain traction. It's with people, but it has to be effortless and seamless, and it has to not have any hindrances attached to it. Like we were saying before we got on about, you still have to wear a headset. You can still feel the heaviness of it, all that sort of thing. And until they address that sort of thing, it won't really take off.
Yeah, that's right. And I also think that there's still a bit of naivety about how we're going to use them. I mean, there's all these big plans for what you will experience in virtual reality once you put this headset on, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is maybe the technology is not quite there. And maybe also because they haven't been around and consumers particularly haven't used them a lot, there's been no real development in terms of the applications. And I think you might find some surprising uses, or people will actually invent ways they like them and use them and include them in their lives. Because if not, I can see them going the same way as 3D movies. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but potentially if these headsets can't find a way into our lives so that they're useful, they won't work. And just a bit of a side note, I actually flew on a flight simulator during the week of the old kind, with levers, buttons, and a 2D sort of scenario in front of you. And I was actually wondering while I was doing that what it would be like if I had a headset on. How much different would it be? And so I think it would have been a very similar experience, to be quite honest. And I don't know if it would have necessarily been better wearing something or sitting in a cockpit. So these are the questions, and I think this is where now the developments that come in the second, third, fourth consumer generations you start to see some exciting products then. But I wouldn't have a clue what they're going to be yet, but they will be entertaining.
Well, just on that, this idea of the practical and productivity applications that VR presents, and we might segue a little bit into our next little topic as well, is this idea of I'm fascinated by the idea of using it to explore space, for instance. The idea that the HoloLens, for instance, was demoed, even though it's, there's also AR type applications there too, augmented reality, where you put this thing on and then you're on Mars, for instance, or you're on a different planet. Or maybe you could, it could be an educational tool where you could, be immersed in the night sky, for instance, and you could be taught what's up there, and all that sort of thing, without ever having to actually go out there, even though it's probably still, I'd say it would still be better to see the real thing.
It might actually be better in a simulated environment because you've got less light pollution.
Yes, that's true. But just as an example, there was a nice little story on ABC about what you can see in the sky in November, at least from here in Australia. Orion, planets like Venus, for instance, and how you would go about seeing it, which I find quite fascinating. But one of the things that that interested me, okay, I want to go out and see this Leonid's meteor shower on November the 18th. There's got to be something about getting in a car, going out there in the middle of nowhere, wherever you have to go, and sort of looking up at the night sky and literally seeing it. There's a whole experience attached to that, which I don't think, obviously, VR, unless it's really well programmed, is going to be able to replicate.
Well, I don't know, unless you open the fridge door to chill it down a little bit in the house or something. Maybe they will be able to do that sometime in the future, probably if they stimulate your brain in a certain way. But you're right, there's nothing better than the real deal. And just on that, it was the other night, just after the supermoon, I was actually with a group of friends, and someone had the timing of the International Space Station on an app that can tell you when it's flying over. And we all went out, and then just below Venus, you could see it come across the sky and shoot across the sky. The space station, that is, not Venus. So, there's a lot of pleasure to be taken in staring up in the sky, I think, at night. It's beautiful, it's free, and it's a good way to connect with the universe.
Well, and just on that, and even though it's past now, it would appear that early November was Saturn and Venus made their appearance as well. So it's quite fascinating. And I guess one last point to make is it's all from our point of view from this planet too. Like if you're looking, like the configurations of Orion's foot or whatever, and all of that, we're seeing it from our angle, and it emphasizes just how large the universe is and how far away this thing must be. That we're seeing it maybe that it in proportion that it's sort of small, but actually if you were to go out there, you wouldn't see the correlation potentially because it's so far away.
We're seeing it, years after, hundreds of thousands, billions of years after. So, it's amazing. I think, to think the universe is that old when you stare into space, I think you get a feel for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wanted to touch on a different topic as well, and we can probably wrap this in with some of the VR stuff if, accounts get attached to VR headsets and you're uploading your Apple ID or interact with it there. But we've talked before about this idea of data breaches many times, and there was the Kingston Council had a privacy breach, a council here in Melbourne, where more than 2,000 residents had their personal details accidentally distributed to the public through an Excel spreadsheet. Watch those macros in the spreadsheet.
Ooh.
So
through a spreadsheet.
Now,
I didn't know about that.
To me, that sounds like a bit of human error there too. But
who was using Microsoft Office?
Yeah, that's right. But again, it's almost a feeling of it being inevitable rather than you can stop it. It just takes someone to make a mistake somewhere for something like this to happen. And, this is 2,000 people. We've heard about other ones that are much larger through big corporations and all that, or social media sites. So, what do you do? It's
and this is the very real problem on its own. Okay, it's a privacy breach. It's not good, etc. Just the same as someone getting into, I don't know, one of the big companies' loyalty systems. The thing is, when you have those two data sets and you can match them, that's when the fun really starts. Somebody can know what you're going to do at that point before you do.
Yeah.
They know where you're going to be on Thursday night because you always shop there, all those sorts of things. And I think as a nice little sort of segue back to our original topic here, in a virtual world where there's no actual physical interaction, if I can mimic every behaviour of somebody else, I can ultimately be them because the digital footprint will be identical. And I think maybe this is where we're going to end up, where it's going to be very hard in a virtual reality sense to prove who you are, either because all the data will be so dirty or because of the continual privacy breaches. Very interesting, though. I mean,
could that potentially be the big thing that occurs? We've had quite a few years now of all of our data being online, and we're accessing them now through what is now seemingly traditional platforms. Screen-based technology where we're not actually in it. It's either a computer or a tablet or a smartphone. Although breaches have happened and people's identities have been stolen, all that sort of thing. I'm just wondering how much of an escalation it is once you step into the virtual reality world. Like you were saying, it's possible to completely mimic someone else rather than just billing their credit card or something like that.
That's right. So let's. This is a little bit science fiction. I wouldn't suggest that this could happen yet, but there's no reason it couldn't happen. So we've talked about the bots online.
Yeah.
So the bots with artificial intelligence eventually are going to get good enough to hold up a conversation.
Yeah.
If that bot has enough data about you and it pretended to be you, how would I know in a virtual world if it could pass the Turing test, for instance, or just has enough data about you to look like you? How do I know that it's you?
Yeah.
Honestly, encryption, password, secret hand, like that sort of thing. Things that.
Well, I'm just wondering, how good can security ID authentication become to overcome that?
It can become very good, but ultimately, every security breach means that that data can be built up, and in a unsecure environment, which typically is most of the internet, I guess it would be possible. I'm sure someone will come up with solutions for this.
Yeah.
But there's going to be that pain point, that really big ouch somewhere along the way where, it'll just be chaos. People can log on, change your driver's license details. They know everything about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like if you think about the old days of ID, going to a bank, you have to bring a driver's license or a passport or, a bill or something else. If all those things are online, if through 3 or 4 data breaches of, the gas company, suddenly I can use all those great online services that save us so much time to get a loan in your name, all sorts. I don't know what these evil geniuses are going to come up with, but surely if I can think up weak ideas like that, they can come up with much better ones.
Yeah, so think about all of that when you think you're using your VR headset in a haunted house. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there, and all interesting stuff. I think it's interesting when these sorts of things tie together, and you can see the applications, and it's also an indication of how technology is just so infusing our everyday lives, when it didn't used to, and it's an interesting world we're moving into.
Certainly is.
All right, so don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. Make sure to subscribe to us too. We'd really appreciate that. You can interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, all the usual places, Instagram and Flickr for our photography. Hope you can check that out. Feel free to recommend us to others who'd be interested in these discussions that we have on a regular basis. We'd really, really appreciate that. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.